Yonis, and my project is on calculators. So, brief history on product. History of the product here. We have the actual first creator of mechanical calculators is William Scursford, and we don't really know him as much, but we did find a journal on him that he was actually the first creator, not Blaise Pascal here. That we know him more for the first creator of mechanical calculators, for the simple fact that his calculator was actually mass produced in his time, and we can see there's a lot of similarities in terms of how the Blaise Pascal mechanical calculator works, and many conclude that there might have been a lot of inspiration from the first design. This picture is actually a replica, but it was based off a drawing that they were able to recover of his design. And we have the later version of the digital calculator. It's precursor foundation, really. It's huge, and we can see like take up about quite a bit of a room, and it was actually recorded to weigh about around 27 tons. So very big calculator. Nowadays we have handheld, right? And so how does a modern calculator work? So the way it's broken down in this picture is that this is the keys. The keys move, and to make the classic keys, which ultimately press onto the keyboard sensors. These keyboard sensors translate or send this information to the processor chip. Processor chip makes the math, and then whatever results it makes, it will appear on a display. Here's a digital calculator. I imagine with a graphic calculator, this display system would be more of an LED light sort of situation. And obviously this is not going to be as pixelated as a graphic calculator. The demographic. So we see that the more simplified the calculator is, the simpler like functions it can perform, the wider demographic is going to reach, as well as the price point. It makes it more reasonable to reach people. So we see that with the small, starting from the left, we see this is more utilized in middle school classrooms and beyond. Even outside of classroom settings, we see in retail stores and people just doing simple math, like it prevents them from doing simple errors. And then we have the scientific calculator. It's more used in a high school setting, such as algebra. It's more utilized in that kind of setting. So you can actually take that on an exam, and even on college, where we're using scientific calculators. And for some, this is more than enough scientific calculator, because it does most of the basic math functions, right, for higher level learning. But for others, especially in STEM careers, a graphing calculator is the most useful because it can perform a lot of more math that goes beyond what the scientific calculator can provide. And if you even look at the price points, starting from the left, it's around $1 to like $5, not more than that. And then we have scientific calculator can cost from $15 to $30, so still economical. And then we have the graphing calculator that can range from approximately $130 to $180, so it's a lot more expensive. And we'll see that people who tend to use the graphing calculator are more focused on STEM careers. So societal impact. I was able to recover a journal called The Effects of Handheld Calculators in College, Pre-College Mathematics and Education by Meta-Analysis, right? So we see in this journal, dated back in 1974, most teachers saw the utilization of like calculators as to be not the best route to take, because they feared that students would neglect their learned math skills on paper to use a calculator and depend on that solely, and therefore all their like hard work could be diminished, right? But they were able to find in this journal that debunked this theory, is that students, as long as they're already taught how to do math skills on paper, being able to use any kind of calculator enables them to have less stress because they don't have to memorize, and they're able to get through math quicker and perform better in terms of getting the right answer. And if it comes down on time to do math, then that means that teacher has more time to cover more coursework, right? And fasting forward to 2010, I found a journal that shows that this journal was mainly focused on the classroom survey of like high school students taking Algebra 1 and 2. They found in Algebra 1, from 45 to 50% of students used their calculators in classroom, and while in Algebra 2, we can see that there's 80 to 90% of students were actually using calculators in classroom settings. So we see that it's changed drastically how teachers are allowing students to use calculators in classroom. So there's that. For educational purposes, we have economic impact. Because of calculators, we're able to input a lot of statistics, and we're able to predict outcomes better. This way, especially for business owners, we're able to predict or maximize on profit, as well as maximize on production, whatever you can imagine for that will help you for making more profit, right? Like, you can take into consideration the production costs and shipping, all those things, and maximize on profit, right? Global impact. Because we're able to predict or see how we can maximize profit, that's led to, over time, people, even from governments to even small business owners, negotiate and work with other countries, are able to produce their product at a cheaper rate so we can maximize our profit. And that's the reason why we see nowadays, in terms of the products that we use, are a lot cheaper. Everything we use nowadays is made from China because they are the most cheap labor, right? Environmental impact. We see here, in terms of the FDA and the water department, all those niches of like government, they're able to monitor better the pollution and the impact on the environment. Scientists nowadays can even predict how, if we continue the pollution rate, it could be very detrimental to the environment that we live in, and could be almost inhabitable, right? In about 10 years. So let's hope we can make a turnaround. And my extended team goal, the experimental goal of our extended team, was to determine how to price range affects calculators' keystrokes, time required to input an equation, accuracy. Each mini team will be representing a different price range for each calculator being used, and each will go through a series of tests, right? So my team goal actually was to test these keystrokes, time, and input, and accuracy on the TI-84. And this is how the procedure came about. So with keystrokes, we had a total, actually 7 equations, and we recorded like how many how many keys we would have to press on the calculator to get our outcome that we outlined. And for testing for time, we would have, after they had practiced the keystrokes, and we would time the person. They would count down from 5, and then once it count out to 1, the person would start typing in, and once the person stopped typing in and entered, they would show the answer to the camera, right? Because we're doing over Zoom, and they were able to, and that's when we stopped the timer. And testing for accuracy, we utilize a calculator online. You'll see that's calculators.com. For the correct answer, we put input into there, and then we tested it against what numbers we got from the graphing calculator, or for us the TI-84, and the two, there we go, and results. We see here the keystrokes Team 1 had the highest, and as we move along, even though you might note here this is blank, that's because the iPhone that we used in here was not able to perform log for some reason. And even then, this would average, the trend here, it would have been around 13 or 12. Still, the average was quite high. And this mini team, including all of them, they were able to perform the same equation in 16.5. That's really good compared to the other ones. So far, the scientific calculator right here is winning. For accuracy, I didn't make a graph in the next slide because numbers are pretty close when comparing them to the actual answer, to the answers that we got. Moving forward, we have, time. Here we're able to see the time differences. This is more variable to the fact that there's different people can perform better or worse on each calculator, but we averaged it to make it more precise, and we were able to find more accurately. If you can look at this, the average, right, is very, very light, this blue line, but we can see, we're not going to take into account this one because it had one equation that I couldn't calculate. But these two, they're quite close, but obviously the first one, the blue mini team one, has a higher keystroke count versus the second one, which we also concluded that from the table averages. And then time input. According to the time that it took, we were pretty close, not so much variable, like in around the same range of 10 to 15 average, right, for each equation. And then possible improvements. Obviously, for the iPhone calculator that we use horizontally, implement log. I don't know why it doesn't implement log and multiplying that, but yeah, they should have log. And for pricing for graph calculators, I'm assuming that a lot of people don't use calculators outside of STEM careers because they're so expensive, and it makes it an overkill, honestly, because you don't really need it at that point. You make justifications for not needing it because it's so high compared to a $30 to $10, $15 scientific calculator that does all of the basics. And marking calculators. Here in this experiment, we only scratched the surface of the capabilities of graphing calculators. We can move forward and say that graphing calculators can perform statistics, finances, distribution. It can, oh my god. Well, sorry, and oh no. Sis, I'm doing a call right now. 1 sec. I hope I can crop that out. Okay, and then we have, lastly, that market calculators. So most people just look at graphic calculators as this big instrument that does just engineering things, but there's a lot more capabilities of the graphing calculators, especially with TI-84. It's programmable, so that means you can actually download apps and different kind of calculators that can calculate from mortgages, from finances, from different. If you go to the website for TI-84, it has a lot of programmable things, even has games, it has a lot of things, and it doesn't require the utilization of like Wi-Fi that we would have to use with a lot of calculators online.